It's nice to see you.
Good morning.
Hi, Karina. Little less brutal a time for you, I hope, than previous.
More humane.
So good, thanks.
I'll just share while we're waiting that I had my first Uri Connect mentoring call this week with a student who's graduating and trying to decide between going right to graduate school and into the workforce. And it was a really gratifying experience, just 30 minutes of talking about my own path, asking good questions, hearing his questions. I think it's a really wonderful way for us to participate as board members in the direct lives of our students. It's a testament to your program, Lil, and setting it up and making it so easy.
Thank you. Well, I will give an update later on, but I'm so pleased you had a great personal experience with, I think it was John, and I know he really appreciated it.
Yep.
Christine, we're now live.
All right. Welcome, everyone, to the April 22nd, 2021 meeting of the University of Rhode Island Advancement and External Affairs Committee of the Board of Trustees. At this time, I will conduct a roll call attendance vote to determine if a quorum is present. And if I could ask my fellow committee members to clearly respond present when I call your name. Christine Heenan, I'm obviously present. Armin Sabatoni.
Present.
Karina Edmonds.
Present.
Courtney Nicolato.
Present.
Barbara Cottam. Mayrod Gindi.
Present.
All right. And we have some ex officio members who may be on the line with us as well. Margot Cook. Not yet joined. Mike McNally.
Present.
Oh, Margot's here. Thank you. Mike McNally. And Dave Dooley. All right. We have a quorum present, and I also want to welcome our guests to this meeting as well. Really, we always benefit from the wisdom of our URI Foundation colleagues. So I want to thank you in advance for sharing some of that today. I will call the meeting to order. And a reminder to all members to please clearly identify yourselves when you make a motion or second a motion for purposes of note taking for the minutes. The first order of business we can get out of the way is acceptance of the agenda. May I have a motion to accept the agenda for today's meeting?
This is Armin, so moved.
Thank you. May I have a second for this motion?
This is Courtney, second.
Any discussion on the motion that the University of Advancement and External Affairs Committee of the URI Board of Trustees accept the agenda for the meeting of April 22nd, 2021? There being no discussion, I'll ask for a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Any opposition? All right, it appears to be unanimous that the motion to accept the agenda is approved. The next item of the agenda is approval of the minutes of our January 14th, 2021 meeting of the committee. The enclosure 3A is the minutes. Hopefully you've had a chance to review, members of the committee. May I have a motion that the University of Advancement and External Affairs Committee of URI Board of Trustees accept the minutes of our January 14th, 2021 meeting?
This is Armin, so moved.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Karina, second.
Thank you, Karina. Any discussion on the motion? No discussion. I'm going to ask for a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, the motion is approved. To approve the minutes of the January 14th meeting is approved. Next on the agenda are our 5 discussion items for today. I'm really looking forward to getting into these discussion items. There's a lot of updates that I've had a chance to preview with both Lil and Kelly. So Lil, I'm going to ask you to first walk us through and share your screen updates on Big Ideas Bold Plans, the campaign for the University of Rhode Island. I was noting that our incoming president used big ideas and bold plans. It's that resonant a tagline. So kudos to you, and over to you for an update.
Thanks so much. My colleague Kathy DiPietro will share our screen for our report from the URI Foundation Alumni Engagement. I'm very pleased to say we can go to the Big Ideas Bold Plans screen that, as you know, our public goal is $250 million. And in January, February, we were able to announce to the board and all our important constituents that we hit a very important inflection point in the life of the university in terms of advancing. We hit within about a week. I didn't even have to engineer it. 200 million we hit for fundraising for the campaign and 200 million in our endowment. These are two major accomplishments for the University of Rhode Island, of which we're very proud. So we had a lot of fun with 200 times 2, thanks to you. And it made people feel very good about being part of our great success. So we continue to be on an upward trajectory on our campaign. Right now, we're at 205.44 million. So since that 200 million announcement, we've closed another 5+ millions in gifts. And you can see where those fall in terms of outright planned gifts. Deferred gifts means somebody has named us in their will, or they've made a charitable gift annuity or some other sort of structured gift. And then many of our gifts are multi-year pledges, mostly 5 years. So that'll show you how that all adds up to the 205.4. And the next slide will show you where we are on the trend line towards our goal of 250 million by the end of the fiscal year 2024. We're well above the trend line. We will probably drop back down a little bit and get closer to the trend line, but we feel very good about meeting our fundraising goal of 32.3 million for this year, and continuing the hard work to fill the pipeline for future gifts. That's one of our challenges at URI is there was a gap of time when alumni and friends were engaged to move them towards making significant gifts, and we're doing a lot of that work now. The other thing I will mention is, I think I talked about it a little earlier in the January meeting, we have implemented an regional plan, which really gives our fundraisers access to alumni beyond the school or college they're working with, and they represent the whole university. And it's an opportunity for us to connect alumni with each other in a region, and that was missing before in some ways. So the regional plan is underway and going well. We continue to raise money for our Rhody Now program. As you recall, we rebranded the annual fund to Rhody Now, which conveys immediate impact. And people responded well to that, and we continue to raise funds for immediate use to keep our students in school and help them get registered for the fall. We're using funds to break down any barriers of due bills and things like that within reason. Dean Labuda uses these funds very skillfully to get our students on the pathway to graduation. Questions for me about the campaign? Comments? Happy to take those, or anything at the end. Also, I'll flip to Uri Career Connect. As you recall, we very quickly implemented this over the summer, feeling we wanted to better serve our young alumni with mentoring. And thanks to Christine's good suggestion, we've had a number of trustees participate and complete their calls. I know Christine had a good call. Karina, I know you've been working on one, and Armand and Mike McNally. So there's a few others, and we really appreciate this. And as Christine said, it's a great way for you as trustees to get to know our students and to really get a good insight into their experience and not have it filtered by anybody. Christine, I don't know if you wanted to add anything more about Career Connect.
No, I think it is an opportunity for us as trustees to get into a bit of the mechanics of programs like that, and also to use a small amount of time to have a window into the student experience, particularly the experience of transitioning from school to work and life beyond college, which is often a very daunting thing without a pandemic, and a more confusing thing, I think, at this time in the world. So for those who have not yet signed up but think they can make the time, I'd strongly recommend it. I also think it sends a signal if at some point the university can announce at least a majority of the board having played a role in mentoring our students. So that would be my pitch.
Thanks. And we're going to watch that and see how we can leverage that. And this is how we build future great alumni. These students won't forget this, and it's valuable, and it's how we fill that pipeline for future great alumni. And the next piece that we're focusing on is how we go about introducing the new president, succeeding President Dooley after an incredible legacy at the university, Mark Parlange and his wife Mary. And we have a plan for one-on-one meetings, but also large alumni and friend gatherings in New England and across the country to really get them out to meet important constituencies. So that is well underway with a great structure, much of it repeating exactly what Dave did 12 years ago to meet the URI family writ large around the country. So that is well underway, and we'll be able to report more on it in June. So that's the end of my report. I'm happy to take questions, suggestions, comments, ideas now or at any other time.
Well, let me start by congratulating you on closing in on the campaign goal and hitting a very important milestone twice over, both for the campaign and for the university endowment. And then I'll turn to others to see any comments or questions for Lil.
I just wanted also to comment that I also participated in the Uri Connect, and it was a really great conversation with the engineering student. And so, yeah, so encouraging everybody else to connect. And then I just want to say, obviously I can't say anything about David because I get emotional. He's so great, but I do want to say that I did get really re-engaged when he joined URI. So just pointing out what a great opportunity this is with bringing in a new president to get folks back in, and offering to host a regional event out here in California as soon as you get that going.
Thank you. And this meeting is recorded, so you're recorded, and we're going to take you up on it. So
Okay.
thank you. I just want to assure this committee that the foundation has weathered this crisis very effectively. We are in good shape. Our numbers are good. Our staff is in good shape, thanks to great board leadership like Al Varecchia and Diane Fannin on the call. And we will emerge stronger and continue a great partnership with the university.
To that point, Lil, anything keeping you up specifically around fundraising and alumni engagement that you're working on, or think it's still a place where we can be supportive for you?
Oh, Courtney, you're so great to ask that. What I mentioned earlier is the pipeline. That's people who have not yet been solicited or made a gift to the campaign. And when I am on calls with my peers across the country, that is the main thing that's keeping everybody up, because not only were we behind where we should have been because of ancient history, but everybody's lost about 18 months or so or will of that face-to-face contact. And all of us have pivoted to virtual, and that works to a point, but I've got a stable of fundraisers who can't wait to get on the road. And so there'll be some challenges there in terms of just, as we pace gifts and get through to 2024. And, our plan is to exceed 250 million, and we can do that, but that's going to be a challenge. Thank you.
I think it's great that we are, at least to look at the silver lining, at least we have the opportunity to roll out a new presidency as the pandemic is hopefully waning and not cresting. It would be much harder to have a new president who couldn't meet anybody in person for the first 18 months of his presidency.
Yeah.
So with
Agreed.
that, are there any other questions for Lil? Any other comments? Thank you, Courtney and Karina. I'm going to then turn it over to Kelly to walk us through some media and marketing updates.
Thank you all. It's nice to see you here this morning. So just wanted to give you some key highlights from probably January through up till just a week ago or so around our media and marketing activity. First is overall media coverage, both regionally and nationally, and the placements. You'll see here the number of mentions of the University of Rhode Island in key local, regional, and national, both in print and on TV. Most notable right there at the top is the Providence Journal, 101 mentions. I can share with you that a substantial portion of those are actually stories about the university or featuring what we call URI experts. A lot of times our faculty are called upon to participate in features of, any of these media outlets, and they're, very prominent in the stories, identified as experts from the University of Rhode Island. A small portion of that 101 does relate to mentions in the sports columns. about Rhody sports. And so you'll see if you were to go through all 101, probably about a third of them are related to our athletics activities, which of course get a lot of attention, not just in the state of Rhode Island, but sometimes regionally and nationally, depending on the team that we're talking about. You'll see the Boston Globe. These numbers continue to go up for us. The Boston Globe has become much more active in the Rhode Island media marketplace. And so we are having more regular interactions with the reporters, both those that, like Dan McGowan, that runs Roadmap for Rhode Island, which is a frequent online media source, as well as the other reporters at the Globe. So you'll continue to see, I think, those numbers increase. We're spending a lot of time working with the Globe.
Kelly, just to pause you on that, I recently read the statistic that I found stunning, that the daily Roadmap Boston Globe email has now a larger number of online daily subscribers than the Providence Journal has print subscribers.
Yeah, that's got to really hurt the Providence Journal.
Yeah. But it just the importance of the growing importance of the Globe in this marketplace, as you've discussed.
Yeah, absolutely. And the way people are consuming the information, we all know, has really changed from print to digital. So I anticipate those numbers will probably continue to shift. Next, these are just a couple examples of the national placements that we get that many of you probably have seen. URI leaders were featured heavily in a Chronicle of Higher Education feature around the student affairs challenges during the pandemic, and a number of our key leaders in our COVID response were featured in this national article. You can go to the next one. Another story that has continued to get a lot of attention is the research and development of a smart bandage. That again demonstrates that while we don't have a medical school, we're heavily involved in health sciences and studies. And so this story continues to get a lot of traction now. You can go next. And then a story that will continue to get attention is the saliva-based test that we are currently piloting on campus here at URI. We will be this summer applying for all of the FDA emergency authorizations for full-scale use of this saliva-based test. The real significance of this test is that it uses a different supply chain than other standard saliva tests. And in particular, we believe it has a lot of potential use in developing countries that do not have access to a typical supply chain. And this particular test does not require a lot of sophisticated laboratory equipment. So we believe this has pretty substantial international potential once it goes through the full round of approval. So we will continue to be promoting this throughout the summer and into the fall as it goes through that process. Next. We have a number of social media campaigns that have been underway since the beginning of the year and, continue throughout the year. The regular decision deadline, we always are focused on. That is the date by which everyone has to get their applications into the university. Very excited to share that the university broke a record this year. We had the highest number of applications ever received with over 25,000. We had the very successful bond campaign for the March 2nd election. Thank you all for your support and helping us get the word out around that election. As we all know, that was really critical for the Fine Arts Project at the university to receive voter approval, and we were very happy that we did. We also launched and have completed the very first campus climate survey for the institution. It was a long time in the making. Some might say long overdue, but now I think is a very appropriate time as we are transitioning to new leadership for everyone to sort of have a foundation of data and information about what the experience is in our community. It was sent to faculty, staff, and students, and we anticipate at least initial findings to be shared in the fall. So I'm sure that this will get brought back to this committee for information purposes. As you all probably see regularly, we are in the constant business of COVID communicating. I can't wait for the day and the year where we are no longer doing this, but Yesterday, we sent out important information regarding vaccination availability. The state has opened up a vaccination clinic for our entire URI community this weekend, right down the road from the Kingston campus. So that was key. And then another is that the UK variant has been found in some of our test results on campus. So we felt it was important to share that with our community and really reinforce the need to stay vigilant, which we all know is not an easy thing to do. Finally, we continue to be prepared for multiple social media pushes around a public health campaign, trying to change up the messaging. I think we're all tired of seeing mask pictures and graphics, but trying to reinforce the message is just an ongoing challenge that we are focused on. And then we've also started putting out messaging around commencement. We're really excited that we will have in-person commencement for our graduates this year. It'll occur over a 3-day period, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday in later May. And there are graduation ceremonies 3 times a day at 10 o'clock, 3 o'clock, and 6 o'clock at Meade Stadium. And so it's going to be hopefully wonderful weather. Everybody do whatever you need to do to pray for sunshine, because it's rain or shine. But we're really very fortunate that we are able to provide this opportunity for our graduates. And importantly, we hope to be able to do something similar for the class of 2020 this fall as travel restrictions start to lighten up, we hope. It'll be easier if graduates would like to participate to be able to travel back to the institution if they need to travel in a way that doesn't have as many barriers as today. Next, I just want to share some of our higher engagement social media posts. Sometimes these are predictable, other times you have no idea. First day of classes, you see, had really far reach and a lot of engagement. People were really excited to start this semester. You see that we had a story around one of our graduates becoming the first female firefighter for Kingston Fire Department. Very, very popular. And then finally, we all know and love those beautiful pictures of campus when they're covered in snow. Those type of pictures always get a lot of attention and a lot of nostalgic posts associated with them. Next. COVID related posts, we're always trying to tease out a COVID related post versus regular communications. You see here those posts that tend to get the most reach and interaction, the planning for the fall semester 2021, because we were announcing a substantially in-person experience. It traveled pretty far. Standard spring updates, and then as you can see, trying to keep the community engaged in public health messaging is something that we're constantly trying to overcome. Next. You'll see in Instagram and Twitter, none of these will surprise you. We had a Bernie Sanders meme, because who didn't? And of course, it was the most popular. Some of these things are the best. And again, the snow picture in Kingston. And actually, President Dooley, and I believe you're in this meeting, President Dooley's message around the violence that occurred at the U.S. Capitol in January. We had a lot of engagement with that particular Instagram post. Twitter, you see MLK Day, again, our first female firefighter at the Kingston Fire Department. And here is where Dr. Angela Slitt's new saliva test actually performed really well on Twitter. Next. I just wanted to share a few key stats with you. Again, this is for those of you that just love social media and measure these things regularly. You can see our follower status. This is something that we've been working on for a number of years now. Facebook, I tend to think will start to probably level out pretty soon, because graduates within a certain time frame don't use Facebook anymore. And so your ability, we're more often engaging with parents on Facebook than we are with students. You'll see our Instagram following and over the last few months actually continues to grow month to month, which is great. We've been working hard on that, as well as Twitter. So those are sort of the key social media outlets that we're currently using. Next. Just want to shift for a minute to remind you of the rankings discussions that this committee has had. We are in ranking season now, if that's what you want to refer to it as. And our discussions around improving our, reputational rankings and strengthening sort of URI's prominence nationally, particularly among those leaders that answer the surveys that influence those peer rankings. And then again, identifying any opportunities to mitigate the potential of those rankings by promoting our successes and accomplishments. Next. So just to give you an update, a few key things that we did, and I won't click on it here, but I'd be happy to send it to all of you. We did send out another digital newsletter to all of the academic leaders across the country. We work in partnership with Foundation and Alumni Engagement to both purchase the list of contacts for presidents, provosts, and deans, and then to send out a very sort of visually appealing newsletter to get URI top of mind to them. We also this year did something different and sent the presidents of that group the spring issue of the URI magazine. That was the first time that we did a print piece to this group in that format and shared the magazine. And then you'll see we had plans to do a formal announcement to this list about the new president in late April, because we actually moved up the schedule for Dr. Parlange's announcement. We have the ability to send out this to the group sooner than we had anticipated, which is great. And then finally, we do have another email slated to go to these peer rankings persuaders, let's say, in sort of early May, with 2 to 3 key highlights, including the COVID-19 test. Voting for many of these rankings occurs through June. So we wanted to be on a time scale where they were hearing from the university at least once a month. Again, always trying to be top of mind to these key people where we know we can make some improvements in our rankings. So with that, I'll pause there and take any questions.
Kelly, I particularly appreciate you covering the information with regard to marketing around our reputation issues that we know are the biggest driver of trying to move the dial on those US News rankings. Are there others who have questions for Kelly or comments about our presentation?
Christine, this is Mayra again. I have one question for Kelly. Kelly, how do you measure engagement when you do the social media? You see in the previous slide, you have the number, I guess, of clicks or followers, and then you have a number for engagement. What does that mean? How deep of an engagement level?
It will depend on the post. If you want to go back, I think it's one more slide. Yeah, it'll depend on the post. Sometimes this is just the number of likes. Other times it's they took an action that we were pointing them to. So they clicked on a link that took them to a website. That click will be measured as a form of engagement. So they had to take an action in order to be counted as engagement, whether it was a like or clicking a site that we then took them to.
Or retweeting or anything like that.
Yeah.
Reach means this many people saw the post. Engagement is people who, as Kelly says, took an action. They liked it, they retweeted it, they shared it, they did a smiley face, something.
And just one other follow-up question. So you were saying in social media world, Instagram and Twitter are sort of ahead of Facebook for the target group. Are there anything else that other universities are using well that are out there that we can also use, or are you satisfied with, so targeting parents is very important through Facebook, and so the different, are you satisfied, or are you exploring other ways to reach your target audience?
Well, Mary, you know me well enough now to know I'm never satisfied, and I know we can always do better. Actually, we are really starting to focus more on LinkedIn. And Courtney, thank you. Courtney's team is also really focused on this at the United Way. So we are teaming up. That is a huge area of opportunity for the university that we are currently not really engaged in. And so that's something we'll be focusing on over the next couple of months to really have a much stronger presence with LinkedIn. It has a lot of value for re-engaging alumni and our professional networks. And that's, anything we can do to help Lil and her team be successful, we need to be doing. So LinkedIn is going to be an area where I think you see growth. We also do engage in Snapchat quite a bit. And so that's an area where you may see more growth. I didn't include those stats there. I particularly have trouble with Snapchat. It's just frustrating to me, but nonetheless, it's what our students are really engaged with. TikTok is another platform that we will likely become more engaged in. TikTok presents a number of challenges around what you post, how you post it, and you know, it tends to need to be very dynamic. It's not your standard text kind of post, so it requires more levels of production and higher quality content to have a really high, you know, standard for TikTok. So I anticipate those are areas where you'll start to see growth from us. And like I said, Facebook, we will absolutely stay very engaged in because it is where our parents engage with us the most. And I think there's opportunity to engage with parents in LinkedIn as well. So yes, there's always room for more.
Yeah. It's a great question. I really appreciate the question. I think the one thing I would add, just with my professional hat on to Kelly's list, is audio media. There is just explosive growth in podcasts, in places like Clubhouse that are hosting topic-based conversations, especially around tech and engineering, where I think we could have some interesting, so for example, a conversation with our new president around engineering on Clubhouse may be something we think about. It's such a fast-growing field, but one of the trends I'm watching that I find really interesting is the explosive growth of audio media. Thanks again for the question. Any other questions on this
Christine,
topic for Kelly?
Hi, this is Karina. Just quickly, Mayor, I actually asked the question that I wanted to ask in terms of looking at other platforms. Something that I've seen is that you have affinity groups of incoming students. Just I have a senior and I've seen her friends, and before that, where they'll start as an incoming freshman, kind of like you could do all the nursing students, or you know, obviously the whole class would be quite big, but departments, is there any interest in, and I don't know if those are self-forming, but I've seen those for schools where all the students can they create groups basically with an Instagram or whatever platform.
Definitely. So we do have that now for many of our colleges, and depending on which college, sometimes it is specific to program. It varies college to college. Some organically come together through their orientation experience or those kind of activities. Others are very carefully managed. It is hard for our department to put our arms around all of it. I'm sure maybe at a future committee meeting, we could share with you some of the higher performing affinity groups that are managed by a university department or college, so you can get a sense of you know, what the activity is there. That is a huge area of opportunity. I would say we are a bit resource constrained at the moment to really manage it strategically, but it does, you highlight a really, you know, a key area of opportunity, I think.
Thank you.
Quick question for you, Kelly. I know that this data is from December to March, and I appreciate that. But just curious, how has been the response been and the engagement been around the announcement of Dr. Palange?
So actually, in a couple of agenda items in our meeting, Christine has a bunch of updates around that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Christine, this is Mayor. I can ask one more question about rankings.
Sure.
So Kelly, I'm so glad you brought this up, and I'm really happy to see what you've been doing. You were saying that for the first time you were sending print messaging to the presidents of different universities. I wonder if kind of looking at what people send to you or how other universities are getting your attention, have you been impressed by one or two things that people are doing to get our attention around the same idea of increasing recognition and expanding the reputation of their university?
Yeah, so I don't have specific examples in front of me, but there are times both President Dooley and Provost DeHaze receive voluminous amounts of email, in particular traffic, during this time period. And over time, both have shared with me and my team examples. We've both asked, please send us what you received, but also send us something that was appealing to you. And the digital newsletter that we send out now is modeled on some of those best practices that we've gathered, where you have, what matters is the first picture someone sees and the headline associated with it. That one visual is either going to grab their attention to open the communication or to move on to the next one. And so we've spent a lot of time, especially working with Diane and Austin Farrell in Foundation Alumni Engagement, to really vet what are the 5 or 6 items that get put into this digital newsletter that will be appealing to this audience. And so, sometimes, and again, I'll make sure to send it with you all. I just, for screen sharing purposes, didn't want to mess things up, but I'll send that to you so you can see what we've built over time and how we've refined it. There is another print piece that you all have seen as board members in the past that we may have the opportunity to send this year. I have a copy of it here. It's the Points of Pride brochure that you all have probably seen over the years. Sorry, I'm trying to, that will be something you receive in the mail, and we're considering mailing it to this group as well. So there may be another print piece that we could share with them in the future.
And Kelly, just as a follow-up to that, the Points of Pride and a number of tools are actually going to be available in the new board orientation packet that the governance committee is working on, and to make it easier for everyone to have, accessibility to kind of some key documents and resources from URI.
Excellent.
So Kelly, just because I know a lot of people do send emails and we don't want to get lost in the shuffle. So I'm going to piggyback on Christine's idea of maybe the digital newsletter that you send, if it could have like a short video or I don't know, a 3-minute, 5-minute something, because it's easier for people to click and listen in the background as they're working, rather than read something. And I'm sure they get a lot of these. So I really do like the podcast idea. I've been listening to a whole ton of podcasts lately. There are some really great ones about higher education and whatnot. And so I'll just suggest to include something easier rather than reading on the digital side that you send out to people.
That's great feedback. Yeah.
Any other questions before we go to our next presentation? Changing gears or changing hats, I'll ask Kelly Mahoney to give us an update on government relations in the legislative process. I think we've had, this whole realm has been characterized by change since virtually the creation of the board. Maybe that may be settling down a bit, but we'll learn more from Kelly now. Kelly, thanks.
Thank you. You can go to the next slide. So key this time of year is the fiscal year 22 budget process. We have had a number of hearings around our capital plan for the university that includes borrowing authorizations for the Combined Health and Counseling Center, as well as the Memorial Union renovation project, which is near and dear to everyone's heart, I'm sure, in this committee. Can't wait to get that Memorial Union renovated and modernized. So the good news is those hearings went really well. There was not a lot of feedback or questions or concern related to those requests. We are awaiting the final schedule for our full budget hearing in both the House and Senate Finance Committees. President Dooley always testifies on behalf of the university and walks through our budget issues and or support. I can share with you this year, the university is very supportive of the governor's proposed budget. This is something that'll likely be highlighted in tomorrow's full board meeting. The governor has increased state appropriations for the university. The governor also included new investment in asset protection funding for all of our capital resources. And so we are incredibly supportive of the governor's budget, which is a great way to start out with a new administration. We're very fortunate. And so that will be sort of the heart of the president's testimony before the House and Senate. They're on break this week for our April vacation. We anticipate the Finance Committee hearings will pick up right afterwards, with our hearing probably being in early May. And then it goes through the formal vetting process. And, you know, it's usually one of the last things the General Assembly approves at the end of session, which is always sometime late June. We anticipate that schedule will stay on track this year, thankfully. So we'll be back in more of a standard pace and timeline with the General Assembly. You can go to the next slide. So we have a number of legislative requests this year, which is actually unusual for the university. We usually do not have a lot of standalone legislation that we're requesting, but there were a number of opportunities this year to address issues that the board were really focused on or that have been lingering for a couple of years because of COVID, and now might be the time to get some attention. So I've listed them all here with their bill numbers in really tiny print. If you really are interested, the board membership updates. I know Courtney probably just heard a little bit about this in our governance committee meeting. This both decreases the quorum requirement for the board from 13 to 10. It also standardizes the terms of appointment to 3 years for all members. Right now, you all have 1, 2, or 3-year terms. So we've proposed to have a standard 3-year term. And it also addresses a separation of powers concern that the board making appointments to the board is a violation of the Rhode Island Constitution. And so there was a decision made to be proactive in addressing that rather than wait for a challenge. And so the board now, as is standard with all boards and commissions in the state, the governor would nominate all of the board members, and the Senate would provide advice and consent for all of them. And I know you all worked your way through that process, so you're quite familiar with it. Next, open meetings, virtual meetings. We have a bill in to authorize what we're doing now, believe it or not. And the good news is there are a number of bills that have been heard that would authorize virtual meetings for all public entities. They have a groundswell of support with some minor modifications from groups like Common Cause and ACLU. So we anticipate some form of this legislation will be enacted this session in order to authorize this going forward without executive orders by the governor. Next, we've talked about small purchasing modernization to increase the thresholds that you have to go through the public bidding process and the bureaucracy of the purchasing process. Again, the good news is there are additional bills introduced from leadership in the House and the Senate to authorize this for all public entities, including state agencies. So we feel pretty positive that some version of this will be passed, which will provide a lot more flexibility for the university, particularly working with our vendors and contractors. It'll be a big improvement. And then finally, the last two are carryover bills from last year that just didn't get attention because of COVID challenges. One updates the electrical licensure requirements for the university and determines the type of projects that our in-house electricians can work on. I know more about the electrical code than I ever thought I would in my lifetime, but it's important to know. So, and finally, non-emergency police aid. Right now, we can only call upon the towns of Narragansett and South Kingstown because we share a border with them for non-emergency aid. So those are things like helping us out at commencement. The insurance practices changed for police departments across the state this past year, and insurance companies will no longer cover police activity that is of a non-emergency nature if it's not authorized by law. So this legislation would provide that authorization. We use police department support from, I believe it's 10 different departments across the state, particularly for commencement. And for major events at the Ryan Center, you can imagine there's times where we call upon additional police aid. So with that, I'll pause there and answer any questions.
Kelly, this is Almond. The last set of asks that we have, is this all in one bill or they're all separate bills?
They're all separate bills. You'll see in tiny little print in parentheses, they give the individual bill numbers. They're all individual requests.
And who's the supporter? Who do we get to support in the House and the Senate?
In the Senate, Senator Sosnowski has introduced them, and in the House, Representative Fogarty has introduced them. And they've all had hearings. Believe it or not, they're all in different committees. So it's been a lot of different committee hearings.
Okay. And the original stuff, the original asks that you mentioned were all budgetary issues.
Correct.
Okay.
Any other questions for Kelly on this update? Hearing none, I'm going to transition to what you were asking about earlier, which is a presidential update. But before I do, I just want to take a minute to share some news and then ask Kelly to speak about it. Kelly, as was just demonstrated, wears many hats at URI and many hats for our committee. She is a deeply knowledgeable State House and legislative and policy hand, a skilled lobbyist, and also a seasoned communications leader leading a team. Having worked in many environments, there are none that are more complex than universities as far as the implications for communicating in a shared governance model, the multiple stakeholders, issues around freedom of speech and academic freedom that mean many voices that can legitimately speak with a URI banner. And Kelly has done so very capably. She has been given an incredible opportunity to serve in a new role. I'll let her speak more about it in a minute, but she'll be leaving us at URI and leaving our committee. So I didn't want this committee meeting to pass without thanking Kelly, both on behalf of our committee and the board, but also personally. As I think many of you, like me, may have encountered Kelly for the first time at your confirmation hearing for the role we now play on the board. And from then through today, she's just a really able steward of so much for URI. And I'm personally very grateful, not only just for her supreme competence and expertise, but also just for her way of helping bring that expertise to bear on behalf of all of us in a way that's just both confident and competent, but also open to new ideas, new thinking. And she's just been a delight to work with. So Kelly, I'm sure others will want to have a few words, but why don't we first share with the committee a little bit more about where you're headed?
Thank you, Christine. Yes, I've loved working with all of you. It was fun to get to know you in some of those, bizarre interactions we get to have up at the State House. We all have a State House story, right? So I'm going to be joining the private sector for the first time in my career, which is a big leap. I'm going to be working for Deloitte in their government services consulting arm, and my portfolio is national. So I'll be working all over the United States. So for those of you that live all over the place, maybe I'll make sure to stop in and we can meet up in person. Yay! When I find myself on your coast or in your area. So I'm really looking forward to it. It's a whole new skill set and a new set of experiences that I think are an important opportunity for me at this stage in my career. It is bittersweet. I have enjoyed both, helping to stand up the Board of Trustees and then engaging in these very thoughtful conversations. I'm a Rhody alum, so I'm never really going to be that far away. I anticipate hopefully getting called upon whenever necessary. I am invested in the success of URI for a lifetime. So you may see me engaging in new and different ways, and I hope to be able to do that on behalf of the university. And I thank all of you for your support and your collaboration. It's really wonderful.
Are there others who'd like to comment before I get to my next agenda item?
Sure. This is Karina. I just want to say congratulations to Kelly. It sounds like an amazing opportunity for you. So good luck, and you have our full support. And yes, of course, we love to see you, especially in that URI party that I'm going to host here in California. So if you're in town, invited to that. But yeah, I just want to say thank you. You were amazing when I first came into the State House, coming across the country and being in the State House probably for the first time in a really, really long time. So you were wonderful, as I'm sure you were to everybody. So I just want to say congratulations. Thank you for the amazing work that you have done, and we're going to miss you.
Yeah, I'll just add to that. You know, we're abundantly grateful for your leadership, especially in all the incredible changes and adventures that have been thrown in your direction. New board, COVID, new leadership. I mean, you name it, right? So you've taken that with ease and with a love and passion for this university. And so it's been a joy to work with you and get to know you. And I know you will continue to do great things. So congratulations.
And Kelly, I'd like to say thank you for so many things in so many different avenues. I've watched Kelly in other roles prior to her arriving at URI, and no matter where she was always competent, strategic, had the wide view, developed great relationships, and delivered what we've seen here at URI. So Deloitte is very lucky to have you, and I'm thrilled for you personally.
Kelly, this is Amand. As we've already spoken about this, congratulations again. You're going to be sorely missed. Great skill with lobbying and great skill with communications. I, for one, personally know the good job that you have done up at the legislature. You did it with skill and ability, and you're very well liked. And there's no doubt to me why private firms came looking for you. So good luck in all your future endeavors out there. I'm lost again.
Yeah, I'll just
My
echo.
vice chair, I think, has particular implications since we'll be all leaning on him a bit more in this interim for the as a Sherpa for us on all things legislative. I hope I didn't miss anybody. I only see somebody on the screen. Is there anyone else who wants
Christine,
to comment?
Hey, it's Margot. I was going to say this at the meeting tomorrow as well, but I mean, it's, as Armin just said, it's a huge loss for us, and I've so enjoyed working with Kelly. Like, I will tell you, probably 80% of the things I say in any of the meetings with legislators or anyone in the government is because Kelly has like scripted it for me and told me exactly how this is going to go. So you have a really good style, and I think you're going to do great in your next role, and we're really going to miss you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to call on you again in a few minutes as we talk about the presidential transition, but that summed it up perfectly. I will go on to that next update, which is the presidential transition. And just want to update the committee. We'll talk more about this tomorrow, that the announcement of Dr. Mark Parlange has been a very successful announcement, generating a great deal of media coverage, not just media coverage, but largely on message media coverage. You know, coverage is only as good as if you're conveying the right things. And you only get to come out of the box once. And this happened with truncated planning opportunity on a timetable that was different with some complexities, and I think happened as well as it possibly could have. More than 100 media outlets have picked up the story. Dr. Parlange has made himself very accessible and interacted with many reporters. He's doing, I think, a number of things, including he and his wife's own support of the university are recognizing that he is sophisticated about the importance of demonstrating what we saw as a search committee, which is his deep interest and passion for and commitment to serving in this role. The social media engagement, as Kelly talked about earlier, was incredibly high for this on all channels, particularly on Twitter and Instagram. Twitter is more of a channel for news making and thought leadership, and so it's great to see the 70,000 plus impressions on Twitter. We are working with marketing communications to schedule a video of Dr. Parlange welcoming him to campus. His official date is October 1. And we'll also be doing a celebratory video of the university's transformation over the past decade under President Julie. So we really think there's an opportunity for momentum on the communication side, the marketing and brand and image side, as well as the fundraising side. I'll see if Margot or Lil want to add to that update before I see if there are any questions.
This is Lil. I'll just chime in, following up on my comments earlier about events. We do see this as a real way, as Karina said, to engage and re-engage people, to introduce Mark. So we'll be taking full advantage of it. And he has been quite accessible. And it's been terrific.
Yeah, I would just say that there were in the process of putting a transition committee together. Mike McNally, as the vice chair, is going to head it. It's going to be very closely working with Lil and Christine and a number of other people to make sure that we're covering all the stakeholders. And Michelle Carrera is obviously going to be very involved in trying to ensure that we're using Mark's time and prioritizing his time in the right way. So there's a lot of sort of components of it. Part of it is the transition from President Dooley, but then understanding sort of who are all the stakeholders that the new president needs to talk to. How do we really, as Christina said many times, really take advantage of this opportunity to make the university shine? So there's a number of things that are coming together through that transition committee. And I think really the most important thing is that we use this opportunity to display who Mark is and who the university is and what was accomplished by President Dooley and where Mark will take the university. So I think that transition committee is going to play a really important part in mapping it out, but also kind of being his kitchen cabinet to make sure he knows who he can reach into to ask questions of.
Marco, can I ask a question just to follow up about the target stakeholders? Would that include other presidents of institutions in Rhode Island, like Brown or Roger Williams, or is that a cohort that you're also thinking of?
Yeah, and in fact, Chris Paxton's already reached out to Mark. But yes, I think that's important that he has relationships with Rick and CCRI for sure.
Yeah, and I know I've spoken to Mim Rooney and others who have already said their excitement for getting to know Mark and welcoming him to Rhode Island.
Great. All right, I think we'll talk more about that tomorrow. Our last agenda item, which I'd like to get to, is just a review of the charge of our committee. This was at the behest of our chair, just as we've had some experience with our committee work, taking a fresh look with fresh eyes at, does this capture the totality of what we consider our remit? Are there things that seem extraneous? Are there things that seem missing? I'm going to ask if someone on the URI side could share the screen and put our committee charter up, just so we can all be looking at it together.
We are going to try to do that as soon as possible.
All right, thank you. Just in reviewing the charter in advance of today's discussion, was there anything that jumped out at anyone? I have to say my sense was that we got it awfully right in how we were thinking about the work of this group, especially because it was one of the later formed committees. Any thoughts that others have had in looking at that in advance of today?
Yeah, Christine, I think it hits, this is Mayra Gindi. I think it hits all the key elements.
Sorry, this is the executive committee. This is we're going to scroll down, or is this the wrong one?
Kathy, I think it's on page 8.
Thanks, Kathy. I'm sorry, back to you. I'm sorry about that.
No worries. I think it hits all the key elements. So I don't think we need to change its content. I do think it reads a little strange, and because it doesn't split, like for example, reputation is mentioned at the top and then at the bottom. So I think for new board members trying to understand what their role is, it would just require minor editing to put like things together. But I think in terms of content, it hits all the marks. I can't see anything to add.
And to that point, I'll just add, we had good conversation in the governance committee about trustees' support for advancement and engagement of trustees in URI external affairs and advancement. So I think that we see and we desire amongst the governance committee a deeper interaction there with this committee particularly, and of course with Lil and her team.
That's great to hear. Thank you for sharing that. Other comments, other reactions? I think I'd love to take, Mayrai, your thoughts about just some cleanup edits offline. Maybe we can schedule a separate call and propose something back. But as you said, I feel as though the spirit and specifics of our remit are well captured here.
Hey, Christine, I would just add for context that at the June governance meeting, will be there's going to be a section of that meeting that will affirm any or change any of the charters that need changing, and we're also going to have a broader discussion about sort of the balance of responsibilities amongst the committees. So, for example, some of the committees have a ton of work and some are less. So, trying to really talk through, do we have a good balance? And then thirdly, are there maybe opportunities where, for example, someone has proposed that we have a separate athletics committee. So there's topics that we're going to try to cover to make sure that we feel like the remit's right, the wording's right, and if anything needs to be changed. So that was kind of the purpose of reviewing it at this meeting.
Okay, and it may be that if June is when we're going to discuss material changes, we have a good discussion on governance scheduled for tomorrow. I would just ask that as committee members, we come back and take a look at this following tomorrow's conversation. And I'm happy to be available to any committee members who want to walk through or think through potential edits and changes. And I'll thank you in advance, Mayrai, for you and I connecting on that as well.
Of course.
With no further discussion on that, I believe our last agenda item is to seek a motion to adjourn the meeting. Do I have a motion to adjourn today's meeting?
This is
This is
Courtney, so moved.
so moved.
Yeah, I think I heard Courtney first. Armin, would you second?
I second.
Thank you. Any discussion on the motion? All right, hearing none. Can I have it by a voice vote? Those who vote in favor of the motion to adjourn the meeting? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the motion carries. I look forward to seeing some of you later this afternoon and again tomorrow. I'll just end again thanking Kelly for her able stewardship and support of our board and this committee in particular, and look forward to seeing others later. Bye-bye.
Okay,
Great, thank you.
Thank you all.